Did you know that at the end of the year of 2018, a total of 30 states and the Federal Bureau of Prisons held 2,628 prisoners under sentence of death, which was 75, also 3% fewer than at the end of the year 2017? 8 states executed a total of 25 prisoners in 2018, with Texas accounting for more than half of those executions. Hello everyone, my name is Salai Damouni, and today me and my group will be discussing the death penalty and how it should be abolished from our capital punishment options due to the inhumane and harsh concept it displays. We will be discussing 3 points regarding this topic, and those include the death penalty causes world and federal issues, what is being done to abolish the death penalty, and there are ethical issues regarding the death penalty. Today I will be doing the first point, which is the death penalty causes world and federal issues, and to get you familiar, I'm going to go ahead and play this video.
All these, I think, do raise significant questions about how the death penalty is being applied.
With each new execution, the case for capital punishment seems to get weaker and weaker. Here are 3 reasons to get rid of the death penalty once and for all.
I believe that the death penalty is appropriate in certain circumstances.
Between 1980 and 2012, California spent $4 billion administering death penalty cases while actually executing just 13 individuals. When the death penalty is in play, the legal cost per case skyrocketed to an extra $134 million per year, well above the cost to implement life without possibility of parole. There's just never going to be a way to make it less than a huge waste of taxpayer money.
I believe that the death penalty is appropriate in certain circumstances.
A 2009 study concludes flatly the consensus among criminologists is that the death penalty does not add any significant deterrent effect above that of long-term imprisonment. Fully 88% of criminal justice experts responding to the poll said the death penalty does not act as a deterrent for murder. That helps explain why states without the death penalty consistently have lower murder rates than ones that do.
I believe that the death penalty is appropriate in certain circumstances.
The state's first role, and arguably its only one, is protecting the lives and property of its citizens. In everything it does, from collecting taxes to seizing property for public works to incentivizing good behaviors and habits, it should use the least violence or coercion possible. No matter how despicable murderers can be, the state can make sure we're safe by locking them up behind bars for the rest of their and our lives. That's not only a cheaper answer than state-sanctioned murder, it's a more moral one too. For Reason TV, I'm Nick Gillespie.
All right, so I'm just gonna go over the 3 points that were brought up. The first one is the death penalty is too expensive. So like stated in the video, legal cost per case equals $134 million per year, and is also a waste of taxpayers' money. The second point is it doesn't deter crimes. So states with lower murder rates are those states who don't implement the death penalty compared to those states that do regulate it. And lastly, the government shouldn't kill people. A state's responsibility is to protect and keep one's life safe, not take it. The death penalty violates the constitutional guarantee of equal protection. So now I will hand off the presentation to Christian, who will do point 2.
Thanks for the info over the world and federal's information about the death penalty. Now let's learn about what's being done to abolish the death penalty in the world. Here is this map of the different states in the United States that allow and don't allow the death penalty. As you can see, all the states in red are ones that still have the death penalty. The ones that are in blue are the ones that don't allow the death penalty, and the ones that are in purple are ones that have a government-imposed moratorium. The ones that allow the death penalty, there are 25 currently. There are 22 that don't allow it, and then there are just 3 that have a government-imposed moratorium. Utah's one of the states that still has the death penalty, and in 2015 they restored the firing squad as an execution method. If the state is not able to obtain the lethal injection within 30 days of the scheduled execution day, then they'll use the firing squad as a method. Utah and Nevada are the only two states to have ever used a firing squad as a method of execution. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other countries that use the death penalty. The U.S. has seen a decline in the number of people that have been killed through the death penalty, but other countries such as China have seen an increase. The top 10 countries that allow the death penalty and have executed people in the last year are China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, the U.S., Pakistan, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. And the types of execution methods that they have used are beheading, electrocution, hanging, the lethal injection, firing squad, and lethal gas. And lethal injection in the US is the most popular form of execution, and since the 1970s, over 1,347 people have been killed through the lethal injection. Now, what's being done, you might ask, to put an end to the death penalty? And there are many things that have been adding up to not only put an end to the death penalty in the US, but in the world as well. A few years ago, states began seeing a shortage of the lethal injection drugs because companies and governments in Europe did not want to be associated with these executions anymore. And so it's getting harder and harder for these states that only allow the lethal injection to get it and to execute these people, so they're getting delayed longer and longer. Another big reason and another agency that's putting a stop to the death penalty is Amnesty International. And they believe that the death penalty is the ultimate cruel, inhuman, and degrading punishment. They oppose the death penalty in all cases without exception. China remains the world's top executioner, and they're determined to put an end to that. No one knows how many people China kill in a year through the death penalty because it is classified as a state secret. But if you exclude China, then 86% of all reported executions took place in just 4 countries this last year. Those 4 countries are Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Egypt. Some of the reasons that Amnesty International oppose the death penalty and would like to abolish it are that the death penalty is irreversible and that mistakes happen. It doesn't deter crime. It is used with a skewed justice system. It is discriminatory and is used as a political tool. For over 40 years now, they've campaigned to abolish the death penalty, and they've published a yearly report to keep everyone updated on their progress. And in 1977, when they first formed, they reported that there were 16 countries that had the death penalty abolished, and now that number's at 106, which is half the world's countries. Last, according to Austin Serra, abolitionists avoid the soft on crime label by noting that the death penalty does not make citizens safer and that it is archaic, costly, discriminatory, and violent, which I believe are all great reasons as why they should be ended as well. So now let's learn about the ethical issues regarding the death penalty from Ryan.
Thank you for that. On top of what was said with the federal and world issues regarding the death penalty, I would argue that the biggest problem with the death penalty is the moral issues and the philosophy regarding this topic. The reason that the death penalty is such a hot topic is because of the morals/ethics. And everyone's morals are based on their individual history, experiences, and plainly what was taught to us when we were growing up, and even now. We grow up believing that the types of justices that we were raised on is the correct theory of justice. And what do I mean by a theory of justice? Is there are other types of justices to handle certain situations. And there's a short film from PBS on their Crash Course Philosophy, and it's called What is Justice? And the speaker kind of goes into what the different types of justices are and regarding to punishment.
Subjects, philosophers disagree about the most appropriate way to respond to wrongdoing. One concept is known as retributive justice. This holds that the only way for justice to be satisfied is for a wrongdoer to suffer in proportion to the way he's made others suffer. This is your good old-fashioned biblical eye for an eye justice. And in this view, punishment is supposed to hurt. That's the only way to make things right. Historically, this would mean things like, if you cause physical harm to someone, your punisher must do the same thing to you. Today, though, in the interest of being civilized, we tend to mete out the pain in terms of incarceration and fines, rather than straight up tit for tat. But still, just retribution is one of the driving philosophical forces behind capital punishment. The idea that there's simply no way to right the wrong of taking a life other than by taking the life of the life taker. But utilitarians have other theories of punishment. Rather than making wrongdoers suffer for suffering's sake, these thinkers favor what's known as welfare maximization. In this view, there's no good to be found in vindictively causing pain to wrongdoers, but some form of punishment is still in order. So one option is rehabilitation. Here, the approach is to give wrongdoers help so they can learn how to get along in society and follow its rules. The focus is often on education and, if needed, therapy. This is sometimes criticized as being paternalistic, because it carries with it the assumption that wrongdoers are in need of our help, that they don't know any better, and that they need to be cured of some social disease. But another approach to just punishment is deterrence. For eons, people have assumed that punishment prevents a wrongdoer from committing further crimes, while also discouraging others from breaking the rules. So rather than making a wrongdoer suffer for what they've done, supporters of deterrence see punishment as being for the good of society as a whole. Sometimes we punish people to send a message to other people. One more approach to just punishment is the concept of restorative justice. Here, you must right your wrongs. The focus is on making amends rather than making the wrongdoer suffer. So if you make a mess, you have to clean it up. And if you hurt someone, you need to take steps to try and make it right. This is the logic behind assigning community service to offenders. The hope here is that the right approach to wrongdoing will lead to healing and growth, both for the wrongdoer and for the wrong. It's about restoration and forgiveness. Basically, the polar opposite of the retributive approach. So take this advice.
So, most of these types of justices have a couple things in common. First of all, they're all punishment, obviously, and that criminals need to do something about what they have done. Killing them, if they take a life, would not solve anything. It would just be two people dead. Another reason why people argue with the death penalty is that they agree with the death penalty is because it's sending a message to the public saying, if you do these heinous crimes, you will be put to death, the death penalty, and they go through the word. There's been evidence of that, and so then the public believes them. There are options that need to be explored to having the death penalty replaced. So maximized goodness, like he was saying, could come up from these tragic crimes that they have committed. As stated in the video, it's the eye for an eye theory it doesn't solve anything. Retributive justice, that's what it was called, it never works hardly ever. For example, if your sibling hits you in the face and you go tell your parents, they're not going to say, okay, you can go hit him in the face right back. They're not going to say that. And so we can't stoop down to that low level by committing that same crime just because the criminal has. Life is precious and life is good and should be treated as such, even if life is flawed like we all are. We are who we choose to live. Who are we to choose who lives and who dies? This type of justice needs to contain healing, correction, and of course, a form of harsh punishment should be in order, but just to not punish for punishing's sake. In conclusion, we need to find a substitute for the death penalty, as this is the biggest irreversible action one can perform. It is not up to us to play God with the greatest gift that we have been given. Just because someone has done doesn't give us the right to commit the same crime or murder also. Thank you for your time.